All right, so this week we're going to focus on working our scallops. So the scallops on this are worked over the course of a number of stitches. Now I'm working my scallops on a different round than you'll be working them. Don't worry, I'm going to share this modification with you on my social media. But for now, we're just going to focus on working our scallops and how to actually do that. So this is going to be found on page 11 of your pattern. If you're following along on the blog, you don't got to worry about that. There is a note that's included within this section of the pattern. And that note is just essentially, don't worry if you don't get 21 total scallops, they don't seem to fit, or you have to do a little bit of fudging. This part of the Afghan is definitely fudgeable, all right? So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to grab our color B and put a slip knot on our hook. Then we're going to join that into any stitch around. It's really not that big a deal. Just put it in any stitch, all right? And you're going to want to make sure that your right side is facing. Go ahead and chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right. Now, we're going to skip 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we're going to join it into the next stitch with a slip stitch. All right. Then we're going to chain 1. We're going to skip the next stitch, and into the stitch after that, we're going to work a slip stitch. So what we should have is a slip stitch, a chain 6 space where we skip 5 stitches, a slip stitch, then we chain 1, skip a stitch, and slip stitch into the stitch after that. All right? Now we're going to turn our work. Okay. We're going to immediately work 12 double crochet into that chain 6 space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, on the mandala itself, we're going to skip the next stitch after this slip stitch, okay? So skip that stitch, and then into the stitch after that, go ahead and work a slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to skip the next stitch, and into the stitch after that, we're going to work a slip stitch. All right? Now, we're going to turn our work so the right side is facing again. And we should have a nice little scallop. Just a little baby scallop. Don't worry, we're going to make it bigger. All right, so next we're going to double crochet into the first double crochet and chain 2. Double crochet in the next double crochet, chain 2. And we're just going to repeat that all the way across. So we're essentially just creating a double crochet mesh. All right. You're going to want to make sure that you get into that very last double crochet. It can be kind of hard to see, but it's actually right here. So here's your slip stitch, and there's your double crochet. So at the end of this row, you're going to have 12 total double crochet and 12 chain spaces. So see, I made a mistake here. So you can kind of see when you're looking at it, but I actually started skipping stitches. See how I skipped these stitches here? So I'm gonna rip these out. Do not skip any double crochet where those chain spaces are, okay? All right. Once we get to the end, and we know we have all of our correct double crochets, what we're going to do next is skip the next single crochet. The pattern says single crochet, but skip the next stitch into the stitch after that, work a slip stitch, all right? Then we're going to go ahead and chain one, skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the stitch after that, all right? Now, what we're essentially doing when we're working these slip stitches and skipping is we're creating the chain space that's on either side that we need to turn without actually making a chain space. So, for example, we're working rows of double crochet here, right? We would normally work a chain 3 at the beginning, but instead of doing that, we're doing a chain 1, skip a stitch, and then slip stitch into the next stitch. That's giving us that chain 3 kind of look. So that's what we want. All right, moving on to row 4. We're already over halfway done with our scallop. We're going to double crochet into our first double crochet. Then into this chain 2 space, go ahead and work 2 double crochet. Double crochet into the next double, and into the next chain 2 space, work 2 doubles. And I'm about to run out of yarn here, so I'm going to have to join in a little bit more. I'll show you guys my favorite way to join my yarn. So when I get to the end, I always leave a good 6 to 8 inches. And then I'm going to grab my next ball here, and I already have it ready to go. And I just pick it up and draw through those 2. All right, then I pass them to the back. I do not crochet over ends. I never recommend that when you're making Afghans. What you should do, in my opinion, is tie a knot. So I go 1 and 2, and make sure it's nice and tight. And then when I'm done, I'll go ahead and weave this in. All right. Yes, it does put a knot there, but it's hidden in the back enough, and it ends up kind of falling in between the stitch. You can kind of see that happening there, which is what I like. All right. So I'm just going to keep working across the row. I'm going to speed up here a little bit. All right. When you get to your final chain 2 space, make sure you work 2 double crochet into that space. Then double crochet into your final double crochet. And then we're going to simply skip the next stitch and slip stitch into the stitch after that. All right? Then we're going to fasten off. And you can see it's going to be a little curly there. That's totally fine. That's going to flatten out a little bit. But this is what you should look like. It should look about the same on either side of your work here. Now what we need to do, this is very important, turn your work so that row 5 begins with the right side facing. Very important. You need that right side facing, all right? And we're going to join it with a slip stitch into the next stitch to the right of our beginning. So we're going to see that right here is where we worked our slip stitch on the previous row. So we're going to go right into the stitch to the right and just slip stitch. All right. So what we're going to do after we join is work a front post triple. So we yarn over our hook twice. We're going to drop down and find that first double crochet from row 3, insert our hook behind it, and work a front post triple. All right. Then we're going to skip the stitch behind the front post triple, so that very first double crochet, and then we're going to go ahead and single crochet in the next 2 double crochet. These are going to be the 2 double crochet that are actually worked into that chain 2 space. You can see that there. So we'll single crochet in each of those 2 double crochet. Yarn over your hook twice, drop down, work another front post triple, skip the stitch behind, and single into the next 2 double. And you just repeat that all the way across. All right, so I know I said we'd be all ready to work row 6, but I did want to show you how to join the end of row 5. So when you get to the end here, after you've worked your final front post triple crochet, what you're going to do is work a slip stitch into the next stitch. So always remember when you're looking, we've already worked a stitch into this one here. So we need to go into the next one and slip stitch there. Then we just need to end off and we can move on to row 6, all right? So this is what we have so far. It's looking perfect. And you can see that the curling that we had at the end of row 4 is already diminished, and it's going to go even further away, so don't worry about that. All right, we're going to grab our color C, which for me is this maroon color. All right, so we're going to keep our right side facing, all right? We're going to join into the next stitch to the right. So we're gonna find our next stitch, which is right here, and we're gonna join into that with a slip stitch. Then we're going to work a single crochet into our first front post triple. Then we're going to work front post doubles around the post of the 2 doubles that we worked into that chain 2 space. So we're just going to drop down and work front post doubles. So just 2 of them. Then we just single crochet into the next front post triple, okay? Front post double around the next 2 doubles. Single into the next front post. So it should look like this. See how that's happening there? All right, let's repeat that all the way around the scallop. It's technically a cross. So you can see that we're not adding any stitches, we're not increasing anything. That's what's going to even out the scallop and kind of reduce that waviness that you see. All right, so we're just going to keep going all the way around. I keep saying around. We're going around the scallop, which is technically just across the row. You guys know what I mean. Ooh, that's looking perfect. So now we've reached our end. We're going to work a single crochet into our last front post triple, and we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch to the left, all right? Then we'll end off, or fasten off, and you should have a scallop that looks all cute and precious, just like that. Oh, I love it. It's coming together. All right, so next we're gonna grab our color D, which for me is this orange color here. And what we're gonna do is kind of just echo the work that we've already done. All right, so I have my color D. Again, right side is facing. We only turn our work back and forth for those first few rounds, okay? I'm going to join my yarn into the next stitch to the right, just like we've done the last 3 rows. Then, working around the front post triple crochet, we're going to work 3 front post doubles. Okay, so there's 1, 2, and 3. So you should have 3 around that front post double, okay? We're just going to do that all the way across the row. So just 3 front post doubles around each of those front post triples. And you should see something that looks like this. Your color C, which is that maroon color, is just gonna peep through. Now don't worry, when we work our final few rounds of the Afghan, we're actually going to kind of bring more of those colors in. So, all right, so row 8, we're going to join color E. And again, we're going to join into 1 stitch to the right of row 7. Now, we're going to single crochet into the first 2 front post doubles. Then we're going to skip the next stitch and front post double crochet around the post of the next 2 front post double crochet from row 6. So what we're going to do is see those 2 blips of red there? That's what we're going to front post double around. Then we'll skip the next stitch. We'll single crochet into the next stitch. Then work a front post double around each of the next 2 doubles. All right? So essentially, we're working front post doubles around those double crochets from the previous row, and on the current row, we're just single crocheting into the center double crochet of those 3 front post double crochet groups. All right? Now, when you get to the end, you're going to work a front post double around the last 2 double crochets. All right? So you can see those last 2 right there. You're going to skip the next front post double and just work single crochets in each of the last 2 front post doubles. Then you're going to skip, or you're going to find the next stitch to the left. So technically you're going to skip this one here because we've already worked into that one, and you'll slip stitch into the next stitch. Then fasten off, whoops. And that is it for row 8. And you can see there's a little bit of curling happening. That's totally normal. We got some bulk forming. Just give it a nice stretch, get it open there, and you're good to go, okay? We're going to grab our color D and join, again, 1 stitch to the right with the right side facing. Then, we're going to front post double crochet around the post of the next 2 front post doubles from row 7. So we're going to find those first 2 front posts and just work a front post double around the first 2 there. Then we're going to chain 1, and now we're going to work a special stitch that we haven't done yet, which is a front post double crochet 2 together. To do that, we yarn over and go under the first double crochet there, pull up a loop, and then pull through 2, okay? Yarn over, skip all those next stitches and go into your next front post double of that next 3 front post double group, pull up a loop, pull through 2, then pull through all 3 loops on your hook, okay? Then we're just going to go ahead and chain 1, front post around the next front post, chain 1, work another front post double crochet 2 together. So pull up a loop, pull through 2, yarn over, go under the next stitch, pull up a loop through 2, pull through all 3, chain 1. Then just front post double around the next stitch. All right, so our scallop is finished. We've worked all 9 rows of that scallop. Now, what do we do next? Well, we need to go ahead and first place a marker of the last front post double crochet 2 together that we worked on row 9. So we're going to find that very last stitch, which is right here, and place a marker there. All right? That's going to help us know where our first actual scallop was. So make sure you mark that stitch there. Then we need to work our next few scallops. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to repeat the same process of working rows 1 through 9 of this scallop, but we're just going to kind of shift it and work it to the left. So we're going to rotate our work just a little bit. And now we're going to skip 11 stitches, okay? So we're going to go. We've already got a stitch worked here, so we're not going to count that one. Then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And into the next stitch, we're going to join with a slip stitch. All right. Then we're just going to repeat all the same steps that we worked for our first one. So we'll chain 6, then we'll skip 5 stitches, slip stitch into the next, chain 1, skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the stitch after that, and then that's it for row 1, right? Now, why do we skip 11 stitches? This is an easy test. The reason we skip 11 stitches is because from here to here is technically 11 stitches. We can actually, so the reason that we skip 11 stitches is because from the very last stitch that we joined in, which was right here, all the way to the very first stitch we joined in is 12 stitches. But we don't count the very, very first stitch right here that we joined in as a stitch that we need to skip because we're going to actually join into that stitch. So we just need to skip the 11 stitches that are from here all the way to here. That will take up the space in between these 2 scallops, and theoretically we should end in our final join should be in this stitch here. Now, don't get stressed out if for some reason you're 1 stitch short or 2 stitches short. This is the perfect mandala, Afghan, whatever you want to say, to fudge and to make the scallops work. Just make sure, this is the only caveat, make sure that at that final row of your scallop, you have your, you've worked around all of your stitches and you haven't skipped anything. You got everything that you need because that's the most important part. And you need 21 total scallops. If you end with 21 scallops and each one of those scallops is perfect, then that is all you need in order to move on to the next few rounds. So after you complete all of these scallops, we still have about 3 rounds left until this Afghan is completely finished. And those last few rounds are going to help these bulky, because this is a bulky gal here, it's going to help even this bulk out a little bit and just make everything look a little bit neater, which is exactly what we want. So I hope you enjoyed the stitching that we did this week. Have fun making all of these scallops. You got a lot of them. I know it's a lot of ends to weave in. Just do it as you go along. Don't give up yet. We still just got 3 more rounds after these 21 scallops, and then we will be good to go.